Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to start talking about how to rope for beginners. Now I need to preface this by saying what I'm saying is not right or wrong. However you learned is not right or wrong. Whatever you've heard on the internet or from clinics is not right or wrong. It's just personal preference. This is how I was taught to learn how to rope, and so that's what I wanted to teach you today. First we need to talk about the rope. Now we're going to start as a beginner with a much bigger rope, a much bigger loop than you probably will whenever you start actually roping steers. But in order to get the best feel when we start off, we're going to start with a very, very big loop. Now, this is what we call the Honda, right? Now, the distance from the Honda to your hand is called the spoke. This is a spoke right here, okay? Now, your rope is going to be on the left side of this knot right here, okay? Now, when it gets back to your hand, you actually twist this over to where the rope slides and is on the right hand, you know, the right side of this rope, right? So it kind of looks like this. So it's crossed over. Now for a long time I actually roped with it parallel like this, and that's not actually correct. So make sure that the rope that is coming through your Honda is on the left side of the knot right there, and then as it goes back to your hand down the spoke, it's actually on the right side. Okay, that's number one. Number two, we want to have a little bit of spoke when we get started, okay? A little bit of spoke. I don't really know how long that is right there, but that's about how I would say. Now you can even get a little bit bigger loop, so that's kind of how you'd start out, right? Pretty tall. So I mean, I'm right at 6 feet. It goes to about armpit height, okay? So that's number one. Number two, let's talk about the coils in your hand. I rope with 4 coils. 4 very even coils. Usually the tail is a little bit longer, but since we're working with a big loop, we'll make this shorter for today. So I usually rope with 4 coils. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what we want to talk about is the distance between your hands. You want to have about an arm length worth of distance in between your hands. Now what that'll do is when you start roping, a lot of people will get kind of handcuffed, you know, they'll feed some and then they're roping like this, okay? You don't need that. You want to make sure that when you're roping, you've got your coils in your hand and driving to your horse and still have plenty out here, okay? So that's very, very important. Next thing we need to talk about is your distance and your position on the dummy itself. So typically I like to be, basically if you can kind of picture where your horse's head would be, we want to be right at the back of this dummy, okay? So we're in pretty close, we're in pretty tight, which is really the best kind of distance to be roping live cattle as well, so we want to mimic that here. Too often I see people being too far in behind the steer. Now, number one, that's not the best place to rope this dummy in practice. Number two, when you're actually running live cattle, this is a horrible place to be in. This is where wrecks happen. When steers jump in front of your horse trips and falls. It's a bad deal. So we want to make sure that we are at about a 45-degree angle. This allows us, when we're on live steers, to be able to react. You know, if a steer steps left, horse steps right, we're able to move our horse and without getting in a bind. So that's where we want to rope the dummy. When we want to rope the dummy exactly how we would rope a live steer, we want to mimic that every single time. Now, as you get better and better, you can back up a little bit, but really our distance from the cow, you know, to the left of the cow, should be about the same every time. We want to make sure that if we're running our horse, we're going to be right in this lane right here. When we're actually talking about swinging this rope, one of the ways that I was taught is to pretend that you have like a pencil in your hand or as your finger, and what you're going to do is rotate this around you, okay? We're making a big circle, arm up, elbow back, and we're making a big circle, okay? Now one way that you could do this is to actually take your rope and don't even hold a coil or don't even hold a loop in it, and just swing it around your hand or around your head, okay? One big loop, okay? Now you see how my wrist is doing a lot of the work. My wrist is going backwards, rolling over, and going forwards. The big thing right here is to make sure that we're rotating, and when we rotate, we want our thumb to go down. Our thumb's going to go down and our wrist is going to open back up as we come back around our head. Now we want this loop to be real flat, right, starting out. Just starting out, we want this big loop to be nice and flat, okay? And this is going to be really weird at first, but you're going to have a nice big loop going around your head, all right? Wrist down, thumb down, open up, thumb down, open up, and you're going to do that until it feels comfortable, okay? It's going to take a lot of wrist and arm strength, and you're going to get really tired. So if you start feeling like you're getting tired, just stop. Just take a minute, because the more that you get tired, the more bad habits that you're gonna have. So nice big loop, right? Big as you can get it, right? And just start rotating this around your head. Now you see how my elbow is actually pushing out to the right here? That's because when we're roping these live steers, we need that rope to come all the way across this right horn, right? So we're actually pushing out and then coming back in. A lot of people go back to front. That's not really how I was ever taught. I want to go out and then back in towards my head, because we have to cover this right horn of the steer, okay? We need to catch this one first and then catch the left horn. So when we're doing that, my camera lady will back up just a second. We want to go out, and you can see how my loop is covering that right horn. So really all I have to do is let go, and we've got it caught, okay? That's obviously slow motion, but you'll see it whenever we start roping, you know, live cattle, or start going a little bit quicker. From this angle, when you start roping this a little bit faster, you can see my loop is all the way outside, and then we're going to rope the steer right to left, just like that. When we're roping, we want to make sure that we have a really flat loop. Now that will come into play when we're talking about aiming at these horns, but just for now, big loop, out away from your head, in, out, in, elbow back, elbow up, rolling your wrist over, and then when we go to rope it, nice and wide to the left, and then we're going to rope it right to left. Okay? Bad throw on my part, but you get the point. When we rope the steer, when we actually go to throw, we're letting a lot of the momentum take us right now. And so what we want to do is when we throw, we want to release and throw from right, cover all the way to the left, cover this right horn, cover this left horn, and then we will get to the slack. So, up, rolling your wrist, rope it right to left, just like that. The final piece that we need to practice on each and every day when we rope this dummy is pulling your slack and pulling it correctly, okay? You've got this steer roped, okay? You're gonna pull your slack with the right hand. When you deliver right to left, palm is gonna be flat, right? And what that's gonna allow you to do is find your slack. You're gonna pull your slack, and when you pull your slack, you're gonna pull up with your left hand, okay? This is your rein hand, remember that at all times. What you do with this is what your horse is gonna do. A lot of people pull like this. Well, the first thing your horse is gonna do is they're gonna duck off to the left, because you're telling them with your reins that are in this left hand with your coils that you need to go left. So, rope this dummy right to left. Some people do, I should point this out, some people do right foot. I don't like that most of the time. I will use it every once in a while because you're gonna get into situations later on. We'll get to that. But I always rope right to left, left foot forward, because your horse is gonna be in the left lead. You're gonna be kind of running like this, a little bit staggered, okay? Rope right to left, pull your slack with your right hand, and when you pull your slack, pull up with your left hand, okay? So it's gonna go like this, okay? Tight rope, this is where you dally. We'll get to that later on, but that is the general gist. I'm thinking about doing more of these videos, so if you like these videos and you want me to do more of them, more of the beginner and kind of progression up until roping live steers, roping sled, that sort of stuff, go ahead and hit subscribe, go ahead and hit like, post it on your social medias, we'd really appreciate it. We'll see you next time.